Right now, in a factory in Guangzhou, China, a vehicle rolls off an assembly line every single 30 minutes. It looks a little like a van, but hidden inside the back of it is a flying aircraft that pops out, lifts off the ground, and takes to the sky at the push of a button. No runway needed, no airport, no years of flight school. Just press the button and go. And that is not the craziest part. That same vehicle has already received over 7,000 orders from buyers around the world. People have put real money down for it. The factory is fully built. The test flights have already happened. Customer deliveries are starting in 2026, right now. Meanwhile, in California, a man named Tomasz took off from his driveway next to a famous YouTuber with over 300 million subscribers. He flew straight out over the ocean along the California coast, past surfers, past beaches, past people staring up at the sky with their mouths open. He did it in a personal aircraft that weighs less than most motorcycles and costs about as much as a really nice sports car. No pilot license required. And in New York City, a flying electric taxi just completed the world's first ever point-to-point passenger flight between JFK Airport and a Manhattan helipad. The pilot and passengers floated silently above one of the most crowded cities on Earth, gliding over the gridlock below like it was nothing. None of these things are science fiction. None of them are concept art. They are all happening right now in 2026, and most people have absolutely no idea. We are at the beginning of the biggest change in how humans move since the invention of the car. The sky is officially becoming a highway, and today we are going to walk through 8 of the most jaw-dropping personal flying machines that are leading this revolution. Some of them you can buy right now. Some will change the way cities work forever, and one of them will make your 5-hour road trip turn into a 90-minute door-to-door flight. Stick with us all the way through because the story only gets more unbelievable as we go. Let us start right at the beginning of how we got here. Section 2. How we got here and why now. For over 100 years, the idea of a flying car lived in comic books, cartoons, and Hollywood movies. Scientists and engineers tried to build them. Companies burned through mountains of money trying to make it work. And every single time, the same 2 problems showed up and wrecked everything. Problem number 1 was weight. To fly, you need light materials. To drive on a road, you need a strong, heavy structure. Those 2 things fight against each other constantly. Every pound you add for road safety makes it harder to get off the ground. Problem number 2 was energy. Flying takes a huge amount of power. Traditional batteries could not store enough energy to keep something airborne for any useful amount of time. And gasoline engines are powerful but too heavy, too loud, and too complicated to build into something small enough for personal use. So for over a century, flying cars stayed stuck in the future. But here is what changed. Over the last 10 years, the electric vehicle industry exploded. Companies like Tesla, then BYD, then dozens of others spent billions of dollars making better batteries, better electric motors, and smarter computer systems. They were building cars, but the technology they created worked just as well for aircraft. At the same time, drone technology grew up fast. What started as a hobby toy turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Engineers figured out how to use software to keep spinning rotors perfectly stable, even in wind, even when a motor fails. They figured out how to let a computer handle all the complicated balancing that normally takes a trained pilot years to learn. Then the materials got better. Carbon fiber composites, materials that are both lighter than aluminum and stronger than steel, came down in price enough that small aircraft companies could afford them. And computer design tools got so powerful that engineers could test an entire aircraft on a screen before ever building a single part. All of these things hit at the same time around 2020, and the result is what you are seeing now. A full explosion of real, working, flyable personal vehicles. Not concepts, not promises, real machines that real people are flying right now. With that context locked in, let us get into the 8 vehicles themselves. and we are going to go from most specialized all the way up to the one that could genuinely replace your next road trip. Section 3. The Machines, numbers 8 through 5. Number 8, the Xpeng Airage Land Aircraft Carrier. The name alone tells you something crazy is about to happen. The land aircraft carrier is made by a Chinese company called Xpeng, and it is probably the cleverest solution to the flying car problem that anyone has ever come up with. Here is the big brain idea. Instead of trying to build one vehicle that both drives on a road and flies in the sky, which has always been the headache, the engineers said, what if we just build two separate vehicles and make them work together perfectly? So they built a massive six-wheeled electric truck. It is about 18 feet long. It has 6 wheels, full off-road capability, and a huge interior. And inside the back of this truck, folded up and ready to go, sits a fully electric 2-seat flying aircraft. The aircraft folds up and can be automatically loaded into and unloaded from the rear of the truck. It is a 6-rotor design with a 2-seat cockpit that makes extensive use of carbon fiber to save weight. When you are ready to fly, you pull up to a clear area, press a button, and the aircraft unfolds itself, rolls out the back, and is ready for takeoff. The truck stays behind like a mobile base camp. The aircraft goes wherever you need it. The land aircraft carrier features a 3-axis, 6-wheel design, and the 4-seat ground vehicle can be driven with a standard driving license. The truck can actually charge the aircraft while you drive, which means you arrive at your launch point with a full battery ready to go. The factory is ready. Pre-production versions are being built right now. The company has 7,000 orders. Later this year, they will start fulfilling them. Think about that number. 7,000 orders for a flying car. That is not a small crowd of tech billionaires. That includes safari tour operators, emergency services, and regular wealthy buyers across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. The factory covers an area of about 120,000 square meters and is primarily dedicated to producing the flying module. On October 12, 2025, the company completed the world's first public manned flight demonstration of its modular flying car in Dubai. The price is under $280,000. That sounds like a lot, but when you compare it to a business helicopter, which can cost $2 or $3 million, suddenly it is a bargain. And unlike a helicopter, you can drive it home when the flying is done. This vehicle shows the genius of thinking about the problem differently. The truck is great at being a truck. The aircraft is great at being an aircraft. Together, they give you capabilities that no single vehicle could ever match. Number 7. The EHang EH216S. Now we step into something that feels completely different. The Xpeng land aircraft carrier still requires a pilot to fly the aircraft, but the EHang EH216S has no pilot at all. None. Zero. You get in, tap your destination on a touchscreen, and the aircraft flies itself. There is no joystick. There are no controls. On March 28, 2025, the Civil Aviation Administration of China issued the very first air operator certificates for civil human-carrying pilotless aerial vehicles in China to 2 operators of the EH216S. That certificate is the official government stamp that says this aircraft is safe enough for paying passengers. The EH216S pilotless electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft is the flagship product of EHang, and it has obtained the world's first type certificate, production certificate, and standard airworthiness certificate for a pilotless aircraft. So how does it stay safe without a pilot? The aircraft talks constantly to a ground control center. Operators on the ground can see exactly where every aircraft is, monitor all the systems, and take manual control remotely if anything looks wrong. The AI also handles every normal part of the flight by itself, including takeoffs, landings, route planning, and obstacle avoidance. EHang will continue collaborating with more partners to expand commercial operation sites, establishing additional transportation operation centers in Guangzhou, Hefei, and other regions across China, enabling more cities to launch regular low-altitude tourism flights, urban sightseeing, and a wider range of commercial human-carrying flight services for the public. This machine is already flying tourists and passengers in China. It has flown in Thailand, demonstrated in Dubai, and received a special flight permit to operate in the UAE. Saudi Arabia has signed a deal to start trial passenger flights as well. It is already commercial, already real, already carrying people. The logical question here is whether you would actually feel comfortable getting into an aircraft with no pilot and trusting a computer to fly you somewhere. That question matters, and we will come back to it when we talk about safety a little later on. But first, let us look at something that swings the other way completely. Number 6. The gravity industry's jet suit. Everything about the EHang is smooth, automated, and calm. The gravity industry's jet suit is the exact opposite of all of that. British inventor Richard Browning looked at personal flight and thought, what if instead of sitting in a vehicle, you just became the vehicle? What if you strapped jet engines directly to your body and flew like a superhero? And then he actually built it. The system uses 5 micro-gas turbines mounted on the pilot's arms and back. These engines generate thrust by compressing incoming air, mixing it with jet fuel, and producing high-velocity exhaust to lift a person off the ground. Instead of relying on automated flight controls, the operator manages stability entirely manually. By shifting their arms and body position, the pilot directs thrust to ascend, descend, or move laterally, reaching speeds of up to 85 miles per hour. 85 miles per hour, with jet engines strapped to your arms. The suit holds a Guinness World Record for fastest speed in a body-controlled, jet-powered suit, and the suit can also lift a pilot vertically to altitudes of up to 12,000 feet and land on a small footprint. The applications for this thing are genuinely wild. The jet suit managed to fly up a Lake District mountain at an altitude of 3,100 feet in just 3 minutes and 30 seconds, while mountain rescue by foot would take over 70 minutes. The route was 1.2 miles long, with 2,200 feet of elevation gain, and it completed the test despite very poor visibility that would have grounded a rescue helicopter. So not only does it works in conditions where helicopters cannot. The UK military has run exercises with it. NATO has used it in mountain warfare training. Paramedics in the Lake District have trained with it for emergency response in areas too rugged and remote for vehicles. The honest catch is flight time. Jet fuel burns fast. You get around 10 minutes of airborne time on a full tank. That limits what you can do with it. But engineers are working on that, and for short-distance emergency response, 10 minutes of flight is often more than enough to change the outcome. The suit puts out roughly 1,000 horsepower and consuming 4 liters of fuel per minute simply when hovering. That kind of power in something you wear is genuinely in the category of things that should not be possible. But it is. Number 5. The Jetson 1. We come down from the jet suit intensity and land on something that sounds almost relaxed by comparison. The Jetson 1 is a single-seat electric personal aircraft. It looks like a racing drone that was scaled up for a human pilot, and it has become the most famous personal flying vehicle in the world. Here is why it hit differently than anything else. Jetson founder Tomasz launched the Jetson 1 straight from a residential driveway and flew across the California coastline. A bold taste of a world where your commute begins at your doorstep and ends wherever the sky takes you. In a collaboration with Mr. Beast, the coastal flight captured millions of people's attention. That video reached over 115 million views. More people saw someone flying a personal aircraft out of their driveway than have ever watched almost any car review ever made. With a 13.5 kilowatt-hour battery, 8 brushless motors producing 88 kilowatts of power, and a top speed of 102 kilometers per hour, it delivers sports car intensity in vertical form. Starting at $148,000, it positions itself as a premium electric aircraft rather than an urban taxi. The part that makes it accessible is the regulatory category it sits in. The Jetson 1 is certified as a Part 103 ultralight vehicle, which means that U.S.-based owners can operate it without a standard pilot permit, following basic training. The first official delivery was to Palmer Luckey, founder of defense tech startup Anduril Industries, and it was followed by more deliveries until the end of 2025. Around 100 more units are expected to reach owners in 2026. The demand has been unreal. Jetson has already sold more than 650 of these personal aircraft, adding up to around $100 million in value, and most of those buyers are in the United States. Even when the price jumped from $128,000 to $148,000, no one really flinched. The earliest deliveries currently available are for 2028, sold out through 2027, taking orders for 2028 for a flying personal vehicle. The flight computer handles all the complicated work of keeping the aircraft stable. You just use a joystick to tell it where you want to go. The Jetson 1 will not let you flip it or stall it. The AI prevents that. It also has an emergency ballistic parachute built in, which deploys in under a second if something goes wrong. Jetson even recently ran real rescue trials in the Tatra Mountains of Poland with the country's mountain rescue team, reaching remote peaks in under 4 minutes that would take over an hour on foot. That is not just a fun toy. That is something that saves lives. This takes us right into a question that every single one of these vehicles raises. How safe is all of this, really? And who is making sure someone does not just fly one of these things into a crowd or a building? That is where the next section gets really interesting. Section 4. Safety, speed, and the machines that push everything forward. Numbers 4 through 2. Before we get to the next 3 vehicles, it is worth pausing on the safety question because it comes up every single time personal aviation is mentioned. And the answer is more encouraging than most people expect. Every one of these companies has put safety at the absolute center of their design, not as a nice extra, but as the main thing. Here is how they do it. First, redundancy. Almost every personal flying vehicle being built today has multiple motors, multiple batteries, and multiple computers all working at the same time. If one fails, the others keep going. Most can keep flying even if 2 or 3 motors stop working. That is actually a higher level of safety engineering than most cars on the road today. Second, ballistic parachutes. Several of these vehicles carry whole aircraft parachutes, meaning a rocket fires and deploys a parachute for the entire vehicle, not just the person inside. This can be triggered automatically if the AI detects a critical failure. Third, geofencing. Smart software locks the aircraft out of certain airspace zones automatically. You cannot accidentally fly into an airport zone or a restricted military area. The aircraft simply will not go there, no matter what the pilot does. And fourth, air traffic management. The old idea of thousands of flying cars zooming everywhere with no control is not how this works. Every major city planning for this future is building digital traffic management systems that work like air traffic control but fully automated, keeping aircraft separated and coordinated at all times. With that picture clear, here are the vehicles pushing those safety systems to their limits and making them better for everyone. Number 4, the Autoflight Prosperity. The Autoflight Prosperity is a Chinese-built electric air taxi that recently set a world record. While most of the consumer-focused vehicles we have covered are small single-seat machines, the Prosperity is a full-sized passenger aircraft designed for regional transport carrying multiple passengers. In testing, it covered 155 miles on a single electric charge, which at the time was the longest distance flight ever completed by a vehicle in its category. To understand why 155 miles matters, think about the journeys that are currently a nightmare. Driving from a suburb to a city center in rush hour traffic, crossing a river or bay where there are only 2 bridges and both are jammed. Getting between 2 mid-sized cities that are close enough that flying commercial is more hassle than it is worth, but far enough that driving takes over 2 hours. The Prosperity solves all of those. It takes off from a small landing pad, flies a direct line to another landing pad, and lands. No highway, no bridge, no traffic light, no parking. In many cases, a 90-minute drive becomes a 20-minute flight. The safety system on the Prosperity includes automated emergency landing sequences, collision avoidance radar that sees other aircraft from miles away, and a ballistic parachute system that can deploy in less than a second in an emergency. That last detail sounds like an extreme backup option, but knowing it is there changes how comfortable people feel getting on board. Number 3. The Air Speeder. Mark III. Number 3 takes us somewhere completely unexpected. Forget commuting. Forget emergency rescue. We are talking about sport. The Airspeeder Mark III is an electric flying racing vehicle. It was built for the world's first electric flying car racing series, and it represents something that might sound like pure entertainment, but is actually one of the most important proving grounds for the entire industry. Racing is brutal testing. You push vehicles to their absolute limit. You find the weaknesses in the software, the motors, the batteries, and the control systems. Every fix made in racing filters down into safer, more reliable consumer vehicles later on. The Airspeeder Mark III reaches speeds of 186 miles per hour. That is faster than most street-legal cars in the world. It uses an advanced 8-motor layout built around an ultra-light carbon fiber frame that gives it the kind of quick direction changes you normally only see in fighter jets. Pilots control these machines using virtual reality headsets, seeing the course from a first-person perspective, even though the aircraft is uncrewed. This matters for everyone, not just racing fans. The software that keeps a 186 miles per hour racing drone stable and collision-free in a crowded sky is the same kind of software that will keep a passenger carrying air taxi safe in a crowded city. The speed just makes the testing faster and more intense. Think of it this way. Formula One racing in the 1950s was about wealthy people watching expensive cars go around a track. But the tire technology, the engine management systems, the safety cells, and the aerodynamics developed in that racing series eventually made it into every normal car on the road. Anti-lock brakes, traction control, crumple zones, all of it started in motorsport. The Airspeeder is doing the same thing for flying vehicles. Every crash, every near miss, every software glitch they discover going 186 miles per hour is a lesson that goes into making the next generation of air taxis safer for regular passengers. Number 2, the Pivotal Helix. We come back to something you can actually buy right now, today, in the United States. The Pivotal Helix is a single-seat electric aircraft with a design unlike anything else on this list. Most personal flying vehicles use either spinning rotors like a drone or tilting rotors like a helicopter. The Helix uses neither. Pivotal built what they call a tilt aircraft architecture, where the entire aircraft tilts for vertical takeoff and landing rather than having just the rotors or wing assemblies rotate to reorient the thrust. This design significantly reduces potential points of failure and makes the aircraft both lighter and more reliable. Built largely from carbon fiber and weighing just under 158 kilograms, the Helix conforms with the FAA's rules for ultralight aircraft. That means the Helix does not need formal certification, and buyers do not need a pilot license to take to the skies. The Helix cruises at roughly 62 miles per hour and offers around 30 minutes of flight time per charge, while charging takes about 75 minutes using a 240-volt outlet. The Helix starts at $190,000. 30 minutes of flight time is more than most competitors. And the design decisions that made it happen are clever. Energy from the battery does not have to travel far to reach the motors because the motor pods are built directly into the wings. That reduces power loss and keeps weight balanced. The whole aircraft can also land on water in an emergency because it has a floating hull underneath instead of traditional landing gear. After a 2-week training course that includes flight simulations, buyers graduate to unsupervised solo flights and are then free under FAA ultralight rules to fly during daylight as long as they avoid congested areas and busy airports. Pivotal conducted a demonstration for the San Bernardino County Fire Protection District in June 2025. Fire departments are already looking at this as a tool for rapid response in areas where ground vehicles cannot reach and where a helicopter is too expensive or too slow to scramble. Roughly a couple hundred Helix aircraft are in private hands as of early 2026. A couple hundred people in America already own personal electric aircraft and are flying them right now. That is a number that will sound tiny today and completely normal in 10 years. The Helix is proof that personal aviation does not have to be an air taxi service or a futuristic city system. It can just be something you own, like a boat or a motorcycle, and fly whenever you feel like it. But what about the people who are not buying a personal aircraft for fun? What about the business travelers, the medical teams, the people who need to get from one city to another city fast and cannot afford to waste hours in traffic? That is where the final vehicle on our list comes in. And this one is in a completely different category from everything else we have covered. Section 5. The big one, the air taxi race, and what comes next. Number 1. The Joby S4 and the race for commercial air taxis. Before we talk about the single most important flying vehicle development happening right now, we need to tell you about something the reference video included that has actually changed. The XTI Trifan 600, which was described as the #1 vehicle, has been effectively shelved by XTI Aerospace as the company shifted its focus and resources to the drone market. The program is not canceled completely, but full-scale piloted flights have been pushed to 2027 at the earliest. We are going to give you an honest, updated picture of what is actually happening at the top level of this industry. And the honest picture is even more exciting. Right now, in 2026, there is a full-on race between two American companies to become the first to offer a real commercial electric air taxi service in the United States. The two companies are Joby Aviation and Archer Aviation. And both of them are so close to the finish line that the industry is holding its breath. Joby, having reached Stage 4 of the 5-stage FAA certification process, is one of the most advanced positions among any developer in the world. The production aircraft is powered by 6 electric rotors and can carry a pilot and 4 passengers. The company aims to launch initial commercial air taxi operations in Dubai in 2026, with U.S. services expected after full FAA certification. Stage 4 out of 5 in the most rigorous aviation safety certification process on Earth. This is not a startup with a dream board. This is a company with real aircraft doing real flight tests in multiple countries. Joby completed the first ever point-to-point electric vertical takeoff and landing demonstration flights in New York City, flying between JFK Airport and Manhattan heliports as part of the FAA's Integration Pilot Program. They flew a silent electric aircraft over New York City. No fumes, no deafening rotor noise, just quiet, clean flight above one of the busiest, most crowded cities on Earth. Archer Aviation, for its part, received final FAA acceptance of 100% of its means of compliance, making Archer the first company to achieve this certification milestone for any electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. They are targeting their first passenger-carrying flights in 2026. So what does this look like in practice when it actually launches? Here is the clearest way to picture it. You open an app on your phone. You see nearby landing pads, which might be on the roof of a parking garage, a hotel, or a dedicated landing station in your neighborhood. You book a seat. A few minutes later, a quiet electric aircraft lands on the pad. You get in along with up to 4 other passengers. The aircraft lifts off silently, flies a direct route above the traffic below, and lands at the pad nearest to your destination. The whole trip that would have taken 45 minutes by car takes 8 minutes by air. And because the aircraft is electric, it costs about the same per mile as a rideshare car. Joby has a partnership with Delta Airlines for operations in major U.S. cities and is planning integration with platforms like Uber and Blade. The company completed over 850 flight test sessions in 2025 and has publicly demonstrated its aircraft performing within FAA airworthiness standards. This is not a vision for 2035 or 2040. This is a vision for late 2026 and into 2027. Real aircraft, real passengers, real cities. The timeline could slip by months if certification takes longer than expected, but the direction is locked in. Now here is something that most conversations about air taxis miss. The aircraft themselves are only half the story. The other half is the infrastructure. Think about what made the car revolution possible. It was not just Henry Ford building a car ordinary people could buy. It was roads, gas stations, traffic lights, parking lots, insurance systems. All of that built up over decades. The same kind of infrastructure needs to build up for flying vehicles, and it is already starting. Vertiports, which are the landing and charging stations for electric aircraft, are being planned and built in cities across the US, Europe, and Asia. Some airports are dedicating rooftop space. Some hotels and corporate campuses are adding landing pads. The FAA has created a new program specifically to test how to integrate these aircraft into existing airspace safely. It is not seamless yet. There are gaps. There will be setbacks. But the direction of travel is unmistakable. The infrastructure is following the aircraft, just like roads followed cars. The aircraft we described from number 8 down to number 2 all contribute to this future in different ways. The Xpeng land aircraft carrier proves that flying vehicles can be practical and versatile enough for everyday people. The EHang shows that fully autonomous flight is not science fiction, it is already certified and commercial. The Gravity Jet suit shows the absolute outer edge of what personal propulsion can do. The Jetson 1 proves that personal electric aircraft can capture public imagination and generate real consumer demand. The Autoflight Prosperity extends the range of electric flight to regional distances. The Airspeeder makes the software and sensors better by racing them at the edge of their limits. The Pivotal Helix shows that personal ownership of a flying vehicle does not require a license or a commercial operator. And Joby and Archer at number 1 show that the business model and the regulatory pathway are both falling into place for mass adoption. The cost question. The number one thing people say when they hear about all of this is, sure, but who can afford it? Right now, it is true that these vehicles are expensive. The Jetson 1 starts at $148,000. The Pivotal Helix is $190,000. The Xpeng land aircraft carrier is under $280,000. These are not prices for average buyers. But here is the pattern that almost every technology follows. Cell phones in 1990 cost $3,000 in today's money. Flat-screen TVs in 2000 cost $10,000. Today, you buy them at a gas station for under $100. Electric cars in 2012 were $70,000 or more. Today, you can lease one for $300 a month. The early buyers of personal flying vehicles are funding the research and production scaling that will eventually bring prices down for everyone. As factories get bigger, as battery technology improves, as regulatory processes become standardized, costs fall. That is not wishful thinking. That is the documented pattern of almost every technology ever made. The air taxi model is even more accessible. You do not need to buy the aircraft, you just buy a seat on the trip. Early air taxi pricing is expected to be similar to a luxury car service. Over time, as the fleet scale and competition increases, analysts expect prices to drop to something closer to a regular rideshare. What stands between now and then? It would not be honest to tell you this transition is going to be smooth and easy. There are real challenges. Certification is slow. The FAA and equivalent agencies around the world move carefully, as they should. Aviation safety standards are among the strictest of any industry because the consequences of getting it wrong are severe. Companies are sometimes frustrated by the pace, but the result is that when these aircraft do get certified, they will have been checked and tested at a level that no car ever goes through. Battery range is still limited. Most of the personal vehicles on this list fly for between 15 and 30 minutes on a charge. That is fine for recreation and for short city hops. But it limits longer trips. Engineers know this and are working on better battery chemistry every year. Solid-state batteries, which could hold twice as much energy in the same weight, are expected to reach commercial aviation use by the late 2020s. Noise is a real concern in cities. Electric aircraft are much quieter than helicopters, but they are not silent. Managing sound levels so that neighborhoods do not experience aircraft noise above them every few minutes is a serious planning challenge that cities are still working through, and public trust takes time. Even when aircraft are technically safe, people need to see them operating without incidents over a period of months or years before most people feel comfortable booking a seat. That trust gets built one flight at a time. None of these are walls that stop the industry. They are bumps that slow it down and shape how it grows. The direction remains the same. So here is where we land. No pun intended. In 2026, personal flying vehicles are not a future promise anymore. They are a present reality. Some of them are already in people's hands. Some are carrying paying passengers commercially. Some are being raced at nearly 200 miles per hour to stress test the technology that will eventually carry your neighbor to work. The sky is filling up, and it is happening faster than almost anyone predicted. We went through all 8 of these machines today. The clever modular genius of the Xpeng land aircraft carrier, the pilotless future of the Ehong EH-216S, the superhero intensity of the Gravity Industries jet suit, the accessible joy of the Jetson 1, the record-breaking range of the Autoflight Prosperity, the high-speed testing lab of the Airspeeder Mark III, the ownership simplicity of the Pivotal Helix, and the commercial air taxi race being led by Joby and Archer. Each one is remarkable on its own. Together, they represent a complete shift in how humans will move through the world. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these 8 machines do you think will change daily life first? Is it the personal ownership vehicles that anyone can buy? Or the commercial air taxis that turn the sky into a shared road? Drop your answer in the comments. We read every single one. If this breakdown gave you a new way to think about where transportation is heading, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who want to understand what is happening in the world right now. And subscribe so you do not miss the next deep dive. We cover breakthroughs like these every week. See you in the next one.